Hello,
Hello.
and welcome to Planet Marzipan, the Fish and Marillion podcast. I'm Mezza, and here's my mate.
Craig Houston.
Hello, welcome to Planet Marzipan. I'm Mezza. I'm here with my good friend, Dr. Craig. Dr. Craig.
Dr. Craig. Dr. Bint MD.
And we have guests with us today. We have returning guests in the form of Stephen Wicks,
Hi, well,
aka Mr. Marillion,
formally.
long-term fan. I have to do a brief sort of resume of why you're here. We welcome back Guy Vickers.
Hello.
Hello, you remember that long-time fan joined us in our discussion with Mark Kelly a few weeks ago. And we have a pod newbie. We welcome Greg Forster. Welcome, Greg.
Hi, guys.
Hiya. Greg, first time on the pod. We always ask everybody, what's your story? How did you get into Marillion fish?
Well, yeah, it was back in the sort of mid-'80s, really, just around Fugazi, Misplaced Childhood. Remember first hearing Assassin, and that sort of pricked me interest, and then obviously, Misplaced Childhood and Kaylee, that struck a chord, and it was from there, really. I've seen them live many times, and I'd seen them before the gig that we're going to talk about tonight, the festival, but that was my first festival. I was only 16 during,
wow. Okay.
and so it was my first kind of, first sort of glimpse into the festival world. So it was quite an eye opener.
And what other stuff were you listening to? More sort of metal or?
Not really metal, no. I was, it was kind of, I liked sort of Meatloaf, kind of Judy Zook, and sort of soft rock stuff, really. Zeppelin, Floyd. But Marillion was the kind of sort of gateway band for me. When I first kind of started listening to them and identifying with them and telling people, I'm a Marillion fan. A lot of older saying, oh, Marillion, it's just Genesis. I'm like, Genesis, wow. Because Genesis wasn't, my sort of vision of Genesis in the mid-'80s was Phil Collins and Invisible Touch and what have you. So I'm like, nothing like Genesis. So that opened the world of me going back to listen to Lamb Lies Down and Selling England by the Pound. And so, I saw the connection. So Marillion was a kind of gateway band, back to, more proggy stuff, really.
Where was the first time that you saw Marillion then? You say it was before Milton Keynes?
Yeah, first time was Birmingham, the NEC gig.
All right. On the Misplaced tour?
On the Misplaced tour, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, look, welcome to the podcast. You're more than credible guest on here.
Thank you.
But more than me on this episode, I can tell you.
Yeah. Well, another thing that we always do, well, in fact, as you see from the title of the episode, we're here to discuss the Welcome to the Garden Party gig at Milton Keynes Bowl on the 28th of June, 1986. Craig, how old were you on the 28th of June, 1986?
I was the ripe old age of 13 and nowhere near Milton Keynes at that time.
What a poor excuse that is.
How was it at school?
Yeah, you weren't. It was a weekend.
Oh, right. I wasn't at school.
Stephen, how old were you?
Yeah, I'd have been 17.
Yeah. Guy?
I was 22.
Oh, the old man. I was 21. And Greg, you were 16?
I was 16, yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Good spread of ages there then. So, and it was at Milton Keynes Bowl. That was the first time I'd been to the bowl. Had you guys been before?
I went to see Genesis with Peter Gabriel in 1982.
Here you go. Here's another one to rub it in your face there, John.
How did you get through? And don't let Mark Owens on this podcast for that very reason, because he was at that gig too.
Yeah.
It rained, didn't it? It rained rather.
Pissed down all day. And it also pissed down the year before at Deep Purple's reunion at Nebworth. I had a lot of very wet festivals in the 80s, but also some very nice hot sunny ones like Reading 83 and Donington 84. So it was a mixed bag.
So the band had played Milton Keynes Bowl before in 84 on the End of the Road tour with Status Quo, hadn't they?
Yeah, I was there for that. That was my first time I saw Marillion. First real second Marillion, yeah.
How was that?
The rock show, and I've got three older brothers, and one of them was particularly into like the early stuff, the pre-script sessions and the album script. But so we saw them live in '84 when they really sort of got it, and they did a cracking show. They were the best band on the set list for me. They even put them on. There was second Billy behind Quo, but they even put them third down the set list. Because the story goes, and I'm sure it is, that the promoter had heard about the kind of overshadowed Black Sabbath at Reading a couple of years before.
Right.
It was supposed to be Status Quo's final gig. So there's no way of having some band upstaging Status Quo at the last concert, put them on early and get Nazareth in between. It was quite a compliment, really. And they were great. And they played pretty much all of Fugazi and Cinderella Search and a couple of songs off script. And as you'd expect, Fish led the crowd, and the band played fantastically. So that's how I really got into them, seeing them there.
Brilliant. Okay, well, I'm going to read a little bit from Wikipedia about Milton Keynes Bowl. It's now known as the National Bowl. It was originally called the Milton Keynes Bowl, and it's an entertainment venue located in Milton Keynes in Buckinghamshire, England. The site was a former clay pit. It was filled in and raised to form an amphitheatre, using subsoil excavated by many new developments in the area. It has a maximum capacity of 65,000. I don't think there were that many there on the day we're going to talk about. And it opened in 1979 with gigs by Desmond Decker and Geno Washington. It changed hands in 1992 when it became known as the National Bowl.
See, I've never been there yet, but Sarah has, because she saw Eminem there back in the early noughties.
Did she?
There you go. Yeah.
Right. Get you down with the kids.
Well, not me.
Show the kids. So where were we in our fandom in '86 then? Does anybody want to talk about that? Guy?
Yeah, it's going to start the thing on a downer, really. I had been a fan of Marillion from 1982. I thought Script and Fugazi were brilliant. I was expecting a continuation of that kind of material. Misplaced Childhood came out, and to me, it was just shit. I thought it was a shit album. The first side was okay. I'd seen them preview the first side at Hammersmith Odeon.
Yeah.
Second side, I just thought, well, they completely run out of ideas, particularly that perimeter walk bullshit in the middle of the second side. Just to me, just thought this is not prog, because I was a big prog fan at the time, back in the early 80s. I thought, this isn't prog. And at the same time, Genesis were doing, like Greg said, Invisible Touch, which is, for me, really a really disappointing album. I thought that it was just pop and that they had lost all credibility. Peter Gabriel came out with So, which was all right, but it wasn't as good as the two albums that preceded it. And to use a phrase I've heard Greg use, I had become too cool for school by 1986. I had just finished bar school. I joined a blues band as a keyboard player while I was at bar school, and I discovered the blues. I knew nothing about the blues until I joined this band by accident. I got arse deep in the blues, and suddenly all the music that I'd been listening to, all the prog and the pop and the Duran Duran, to me, it just seemed like these people didn't really have a clue about music. Real music was being made in Texas and in Chicago. And but I had got a ticket to go to Milton Keynes, and I had actually seen Marillion in January on one of the rearranged dates from the previous year because of Fish losing his voice. And the concert, but not so much for Misplaced Childhood. I sort of had to endure Misplaced Childhood and enjoyed it for the rest of it. So that's where I was in my head. I thought this was probably going to be the last time I would ever see Marillion.
Well,
And-
we'll see how that panned out.
We'll see how that pans out later, won't we?
Greg, you've kind of talked to us about where your fandom was, haven't you, really? So you sort of seen them for the first time, really excited about going to a festival gig.
Yeah, yeah. It was quite monumental to be honest. It was because I'd had my last exam on the Thursday, so I'd officially left high school. And my first weekend at high school was going to my first festival, and then the World Cup final was on the Sunday.
Wow.
It was pretty monumental.
Yeah, yeah.
And then I got the coach down with my friend. We were the only 2 Marillion fans in the village. And he insisted we get the coach because I was telling Guy this story. He was a couple of years older than me. He'd seen Marillion before me. And he'd got the train and he put full fish makeup on. And he went to the ticket office and they made, because he had a rail card, they made him wipe the makeup. So we kind of just looked a kind of crazy person, all this kind of fish scales and everything. So he says, no, we're getting the coach. So we got a coach and ticket from Wrexham down to Milton Keynes. And it was like I said, when you asked in the comments section of what's your memories, I don't remember much about the day, but I remember by the time Marillion came on, I was knackered, sunburned, and covered with piss.
Yeah.
It was, I thought, oh, this is good. I was completely fed up. And then the band came on and it was just amazing.
Okay, well, hold that thought. We'll come back to that very shortly. Stephen, where were you in your sort of fandom in '86?
Well, for me, kind of the opposite of Guy, really. I thought there was peak Marillion with fish. I think the two concerts I saw that year were obviously the Milton Keynes Bowl and the farewell to '86 in Liverpool with a strung floor where they sort of played 2 or 3 songs from Clutching at Straws. And those 2 concerts are probably my top 10, 15 Marillion concerts I've been to, and certainly the only 2 with fish sort of fronting the band. So I've gone from, when you're 15, 16, 17, 2 years is a long time, isn't it? And I've gone from seeing them 2 years before to buying everything, being really into them, getting into the fan club. Still not going to that many concerts because I was 16 at school, but they became my favourite band, definitely. And we'll get into it. But Milton Keynes seemed to me to be the height of their journey as a band as well, in terms of a fan and popularity. And before kind of the wheels started to fall off a little bit with the characters and the personalities within the band, they didn't see those cracks. At least it didn't seem to be so. And even in hindsight, when you see the video on YouTube, they're all very much together. And also peak as a band because they'd just been obviously play with Queen, so they'd honed themselves on the Miss West Childhood Marine tour. A week before they played still some 110,000 people in Germany supporting Queen. They were on top of the game. And we'll get into set list as well. And the picture set felt like for the fans. Absolutely from the beginning, there you go. Yeah, that's, and it felt just a fan's gig, but 50,000 of us. And it was great. It was great. I really loved the whole performance.
Yeah, I was, again, opposite to Guy. I talked about this on the Misplaced Childhood episode. I found side 1 of Misplaced on the Farewell to '84 tour so exciting. It felt like our band was just about to go on to the next level. I'd seen them at Sheffield City Hall on the rearranged gig in February '86, and that was amazing. On the first gig, when it should have happened, Jadis, the support band, played, and I had a ticket up in the balcony. And for the rearranged gig, I managed to get a ticket down in the stall, so I was only about 5 rows back. And it was just an amazing gig. Everybody knew who Marillion were. You didn't have the problem you had for the previous 3 years of who are they, what? And it was a really exciting time. And as soon as they announced Milton Keynes, there was no way I wasn't going. I would do anything I could do to get there. And as I say, it was an exciting time in my life. I was 21, so lots of things sort of opening up for me. And, it's proved, looking around this room, it's proved rather expensive, this journey, but good. But all the better for it. So a few of you touched upon the summer shows. In Mick Wall's Market Square Heroes book, which I very rarely get off the shelf because I find Separated Out is a better read than this. it talks about the band had put Milton Keynes on sale first and then got offered the Queen shows, which kind of fleshed out they were never going to turn down the chance to play with Queen. And it sort of gave them a run of about, is it
39
or
shows?
10?
No, it's about 13, I think.
Is it? Gave them a run of shows to really sort of take their sort of status up to the next level. And also in this book, John Arneson is quoted as saying they earned more money from those dates in Europe and Milton Keynes than they'd made in the previous 3 years.
Yeah. So do you want us to tell you what the dates and that were on that tour?
Yeah.
Started off on June the 11th, and I'll go see. This is where you get kicked for pronunciation.
You've offered. You stepped into this.
Yeah, June the 11th in
Somewhere.
Gothenburg in Sweden. Yeah. Then on the 12th in Stockholm, and then on the 14th in Paris, and then Rock in Riem in Munich, and then they played Vienna, then Rotterdam at the Ahoy, then the Mannheim gig on the June the 21st, and then the Berlin gig on the 26th. They had garden party in Milton Keynes was the 28th. There was a Milano Sono Festival 86 in Milan in Italy. Then they did on the 17th of July. 19th of July, they played Cologne. 27th of July.
This wasn't part of the tour.
Well, you know,
Yeah.
and it supposedly ended the Olympia Theatre in London in England on August the 3rd.
There weren't all festivals, were there, Craig? Looking at I looked at some of the
No, not all festivals, but
about 20,000, and the Mannheim was Queen's biggest show, which topped by Worth.
was it like 110,000 or something like that, was it?
15 and there's 120 at Network. It's certainly Rui's biggest show, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was broadcast on German TV, that one, but that's kind of the background of where the band were at the time. I just want to ask you a little bit about your journey to Milton Keynes Bowl, but I'm going to start myself. I'm going to answer that myself before I give you the chance.
Because this was your real big quandary, wasn't it? Whether you were actually going to go and see Marillion. There was
No. I got my ticket from a company called Ticket World in York, and there was a ticket and a coach journey combined, and turned up very excited on the morning of the 28th of June to the Cenotaph in York, and there must have been 80 female fans there because it's the same day as Wham! The final was at Wembley. So there were 2 coaches going to Milton Keynes and 4 coaches going to Wembley for Wham! All from the Cenotaph. And as we set off from York at the same time, and the coaches were sort of overtaking each other on the motorway for a while.
But there weren't many women on your coach.
No, there weren't at all. But yeah, it was really.
Or let's go to Wham instead.
I thought you considered it. I mean, George was a hell of a singer, wasn't he?
It was.
But yeah, it was just the excitement of that morning. It was a really beautifully clear morning. The temperature just started to rise. I'm sure you'll pick up on this, guys, with your stories. But yeah, the coach journey was great. All of us really excited, exchanging stories about where we'd seen the band and what we were looking forward to. Greg, what's your story about your journey there?
Quite similar to yourself, to be honest. It was I rooted a few things out for tonight. One being the ticket.
Oh yeah.
I got the program as well. I've still got that. But yeah, it was a coaching ticket deal. It was a company called Rights of Wrexham, and they used to have all the concerts. I don't remember the Wham! Side of it, to be honest, but I remember getting on the coach and then being with traveling down with sort of fellow Marillion fans and listening to Marillion all the way down, and just the anticipation, the excitement of it. And I was just, I was like that, I was totally into Marillion. They were my favorite band, and I'd seen them before, but when I'd seen them, I was in a kind of a standing, G block or whatever. Whereas when I came into the bowl, and I was just like, oh wow, I can stand wherever I want. And I was like, I'm gonna go right down the front. And I was just like, totally kind of buzzing the whole day. And I liked the bands that, I liked Gary Moore and Magnum, but I was there for Marillion. So, I was just kind of willing the hours away, really, waiting for the guys to come on.
Stephen?
Similarly, got a coach from Leeds with some friends from school. So really at the time was built, they had different groups of fans in there. One was definitely the heavy metal crowd. They played Donington the year before and they went crying all the time. And that was kind of one of their routes to market, if you like, was via that sort of rock crowd. And all my friends and me went to sort of the new wave of later the wave of British heavy metal bands and Def Leppard and people like that for them. And so, I went down with them and I'd done a few festivals before because I got older brothers. I kind of got away with going to concerts way a bit younger than I might have done. So I've been to Donington in '84. I'd been to Milton Keynes and also saw Queen a couple of times that summer as well in '86. And I remember really, really hot day. But I remember us thinking, right, we're going to pace ourselves. We're going to sit by the mixing desk for the support band, stand up a bit when they come on. I've got clear memory of one guy on the coach who wasn't one of his school friends, having 5 joints, and he written the name of the band on each joint. So we didn't ever do it. When the band came on, you'd have the joint that them said he's a Magnum or whatever. So that's the first time I've probably seen someone actually take drugs, which is quite a thing. You find yourself experiencing things in crowds like that. But it was a warm day. I do remember getting off at the service station for the break, and a load of mainly females in sort of stilettos and 80s, garb for. I guess that was Wham's final concert, was it?
It was the Wham the final, yeah.
So the contrast there, and it sort of it's funny, you get these contrasts, don't you? When we were at, was it Butlins when they had the line dances there and the Marillion fans,
Yeah.
how the cultures clash. So he was the coach down and the coach back for sort of carefree days, really.
Okay. Guy, you were the oldest one of the lot of us. What was your journey like?
I can tell you what my philosophical journey was like.
Go on, now.
Tell you what my actual journey was like. The reason I can't tell you what my actual journey was like was as the comments on your webpage indicated. Those were the days when you had fairly unrestricted ability to take alcohol into events like this. Yeah. And I went with the trombone player from the blues band that I was talking about. He was mental, and he's a judge now, criminal judge, High Court. But at the time,
there's a theme here, Guy.
He was a pithet. I'm not saying that he and I differed to any great extent, but we both took in the maximum amount of alcohol. But my tipple then, as now, was cider, and his was beer. So I think he was probably less drunk than me. But I remember nothing about the journey back, and I can only tell you that we must have gone by train because we would have known that I wasn't going to be fit to drive back afterwards, although I had a car at the time. So I assume we went by train. My philosophical journey, though, was that I did see Marillion at Reading in 1983 when they started with Grendel, which was fantastic. And I remember that gig really, really clearly. I remember that whole weekend really clearly. By the time we get to 1986, my love for Marillion, it's not disappeared. I'm just worried about the way they're going. And I agreed to go because it was Marillion and because I had seen them many times before. But by that stage, I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it turned out to be. And I don't have the kind of memories that Greg has about getting, I didn't get covered in piss. I do remember that. I may have been responsible for covering Greg in piss because I was further back than. I do remember that was a tradition at British rock festivals of throwing the bottles that you had emptied of their original contents, refilling them with what passed through, and then delivering it as a gift to people who were more fortunate than you at having a better position. But I can't remember it specifically. I didn't aim it at Greg. I'm sorry, Greg, if I did that to you at the time. I didn't know any of you then, and then 4 people here.
None of us knew each other. No,
along with between 0 and 65,000. We're still waiting for John to reveal how many people were actually
35,000.
It didn't feel half full,
No, it didn't. No, but
Where I was, it felt pretty packed. And I remember my main recollection of the day is the beginning of the show, when they came on and played Garden Party and Freaks. When I thought, well, this is going to be spectacular, because this is the kind of music that I like more than what I was fearing I was going to hear later, and I did hear later. But fortunately, then Clutching at Straws came along, and all was forgiven.
okay.
I see, for some reason, John, I've just every time you're talking about your trip down there, the coach, I just get like flashes of the works trip on Carry On at Your Convenience, where you've got the coach keep pulling up to bushes so they can nip out and have a wee, and then nip it. And then
I didn't go by the coach, but I have been on a coach to gigs many times in the early 80s. Mead Gould Promotions was a particular favourite, and they used to take people all over Europe. I went to Belgium, I went to France, but on this occasion, I don't think I went by coach. I think I went by train.
Okay. Well, that's how we got there. The first band on that day were Mama's Boys. Right up Stephen's alley with his new wave of British heavy metal.
Yeah, well, but they were the first one they ever saw, because the first concert I went to was Thin Lizzy in 1983 on their last tour. And Mum's Boys are from Ireland. They were their support band. And I must say, in 83, they weren't fantastic. But something must have happened between then and when they played Nebworth in 85.
They practiced a bit, yeah?
Yeah, well, I think they did. I think they got a bit of a reputation for going on festivals and getting the crowd going. So there's only three of them. Well, at the time, there were only three of them. And the set list was very influenced by sort of Slade and 70s rock. And they would do sing-alongs in their songs that were easy to get on with, like you would if you're doing a show to people you don't know. This is how it goes. Sing it back to me. Quite basic, really. But that's what people want. They want to have a good sound, particularly for an opening band. And I thought that they honed that really, really well. And memories from Nebworth and from Milton Keynes was they got the crowd going really, really well. And at the time, they just got probably the best album was the album called Power and Passion, which is hard to get hold of now. You can't stream it. But it was also a bit of a step up for them. The first two albums were sort of indie, new wave British heavy metal albums. The third album was a bit more polished, and it showed. It's such a shame. They're one of those bands that perhaps would have done it better, but they certainly had the chops for it live. They were very good, I thought.
They must have done. The set list was only 5 songs. So they must have done half an hour, something like that.
Yeah, they actually did an encore, so they did go off and come back on, which I don't think was guaranteed. And they did. I think Man, We're All Crazy Now. But also, I say, because they did the sing-alongs, then a song could last longer than 3 or 4 minutes. They'd often be 5 or 6 minutes, and they'd have a guitar solo, and the guitar player played the violin, and he did a song where he played the violin as well. So they had a bit more than one string to the bow. I mean, the songs weren't fantastic, but live, they knew how to get the most out of the material to work a crowd.
Well, I'm sure, if you were there, you'll know this already, but it was an absolutely blistering hot day. So they'll come on at the height of the heat, I've no doubt, sort of mid-afternoon, which won't have helped.
No, I think it's 3 o'clock that started from what I've seen since. Yeah.
I've got the set list if it means anything to you. Letting Go, One Last Chance, Runaway Dreams, Straightforward, and No Looking Back.
Yeah, and they did Man, We're All Crazy Now as an encore. Straightforward, No Looking Back is one song, John. It's called Straightforward, No Looking Back. So yeah.
All right, there's a comma, so I'll give you that. But it's did that same. Anybody else any views on Mama's Boy? Go ask Guy because he can't remember him.
Don't think I even got there by that point.
Greg?
No, I don't remember much about Mama's Boys, to be honest. I think I was too busy looking at the merch and sort of marveling over what I'm going to buy later.
Yeah, well, the merch is worth mentioning. There was a selection of really nice polo shirts, actually. They were sort of red or blue with a white stripe down the sleeves, embroidered patch on the breast. I got a red one, which I've since sold to Marco's Marillion Museum. Hi, Mark, if you're listening.
Stole it?
Yes.
Don't need it.
No.
Oh, of course, there's from your cure, of course.
In exchange for money. Before Mark knew who I was, before I knew who he was. Second up on that afternoon were Magnum. That's you and Stephen. I really enjoyed Magnum. It was
Well, they're just still Storytellers Night. they've released Vigilante, or about to release, and did a few songs from that. They're about to get into Wings of Heaven, which was the next album, which was probably the most popular one. So we're in that peak period where they tour 2 or 3 times a year. They built up a really strong fan base from touring, and they kind of, I think, mentioned earlier about the different sort of fan bases that Marillion had. They had the heavy metal fans, they had the prog fans, which had the Jethro's Full sort of were there for them, I guess, and then the sort of poppy rock fans as well. And Magnum probably fell within that sort of bracket. And it's funny looking band, but again, they're sort of quite poppy music and quite sing along music, and a band that just toured and toured and toured. So live, they knew what they were doing.
Am I right in thinking Vigilante was their first for a major label once it was on Polydor?
That's right, yeah. Storytellers Night sort of broke them. They got quite a bit of coverage on TV. Remember the programme No Limits that Jonathan King started? They got a bit of sort of exposure with that, and the song Just Like an Arrow was got a bit of radio play, I think, which attracted them to Polydor. We've got Roger Taylor's produced Vigilante, which sounds a very Roger Taylor album if you listen to it, lots of electric.
Anything wrong with that?
No, but electric drums and that. And it was good. It's a good album. And then, but Wings of Heaven was where they kind of had a few hits, I think, or sort of semi-hits, and up sort of on a brief period of popularity.
I'm just checking. Vigilante won't release till September, so this must have been a preview with the title track. And then the bulk of the set is all stuff off on a Storyteller's Night, really. How Far Jerusalem, Just Like an Arrow. Then you've got older tracks like Kingdom of Madness and When the Night Comes Down. I recall them going down really well. I think a lot of people in the crowd, and more people knew them than knew Mama's Boys.
All right, yeah, I quite enjoyed Magnum. I was kind of drawn to him. I mean, I'm an artist. I do kind of artwork and what have you, and that side of it with Marillion really drew me into the band. But Magnum has some great sleeves as well. Storyteller's Night, Just Like an Arrow. I really like that song. We played that, and it's I remember as well on the poster, because they always had the old Magnum logo. Then for Vigilante they changed the logo. Yeah. And there's 2 versions of the 1986 Garden Party poster. There's a version with the old Magnum logo, and there's a version with the new one.
All right.
So I don't know. I don't know if the old one's like a rarer version, but that's probably just the sort of geek graphic designer artist in me. But it's, I remember Just Like an Arrow because it was like quite a favorite of mine, and I generally enjoyed the whole set. And like you said, they went down really well.
Yeah, my first exposure to Magnum. I then went back and bought On a Storyteller's Night, and I bought all the Polydor albums, but then fell away again when they sort of went on their tour of all the independent albums, which is how they sort of ended up again, wasn't it? But yeah, is it Bob Catley, isn't it?
Yeah, Bob Catley.
Bob Catley's got a very strange sort of manner about him when he sings as well, hasn't he? I mean, apologies to any Magnum fans. I know they're a very revered band. They've just done some farewell dates.
One of them just died last year.
Yeah. It was Tony Clarkin passed away last year.
He all the songs,
His headed bass player was,
No, he was a guitarist. He was a main manager, yeah.
But it's on all the music. So Bob Catley was the voice, obviously, but the actual songwriter was Tony Clarkin. What's that?
I remember Magnum. It was not the first time I'd seen Magnum or the last time I saw Magnum. I got a sense from Magnum at 22, when I knew nothing, that they were never going to be a really big band. They were always going to be fourth down the bill at a festival somewhere. They were going to be a permanent fixture at that sort of level. They were never going to rise up to become a headliner the way that, for instance, Marillion had. And Marillion had obviously done it because they'd made themselves super popular. And they'd made themselves super popular by deliberately going out and writing material that could be a hit single, which was why I had gone off them so much. And I was so stupid when I was in my young 20s. I didn't put together the fact that you have to make money while you're doing the job of being a musician, or you stop being able to do the job of being a musician. Marillion have been able to stay doing nothing but being musicians for their whole career, and that's quite rare because lots of bands they make great music, but they don't have a popular breakthrough. So it's not that they weren't great musicians, but they can't afford to keep doing it without also doing some kind of other job. Marillion were very good at doing that. I didn't get the feeling that Magnum were ever going to do that.
I think that's a bit harsh. I think Magnum weren't on a major until that point. I think that's a big factor. Marillion signed to a major straight away, which immediately gives you a lot more exposure and people a lot more access to your music. They were just on the verge. I would say, I think Stephen touched on it. Wings of Heaven is probably their biggest selling album, is it?
Yeah, they did pedal in NEC in Birmingham.
Yeah, they got to that sort of level.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's, you know, it's about being in the right place at the right time, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But they go right. Well, how far back to Magnum though? Like 73, 74?
Yeah.
Really? I didn't realize that.
Yeah. They got a long career, massive career they were on Jet Records. You know, they were just scrabbling around. But
It just felt to me, because I would bump into them either as a support band or on a bill like this, that they were like always going to be the bridegroom and never or the bridesmaid and never the bride, whatever. That they were space fillers. They were never going to be that popular.
I think whoever picked this lineup, it was a masterstroke. It really was. Magnum are one of the reasons a lot of people were there.
Really?
Yeah. And Gary Moore was a bit, as we'll talk about very shortly, was a big name.
Mhm.
Tull, obviously, is the same sort of catchment crowd as Marillion. I think it's a genius lineup. It really was.
I think Magnum were the sort of band, when you went to see them, it was a load of fans who knew all the they were like, who's their secret? Like, we were like, really, it's our secret, but they were.
Well, yeah, a bit like Marillion had been until Miss
But only because it was similar, you know, really good to a select number of people, and they kind of quite like that, being that sort of group. And
Oh yeah, I'm not knocking that. That's part of the reason that I had gone off Marillion, was because, and I think again, a lot of people I've subsequently discovered feel like this. They have a favorite band and they like their favorite band, and then all of a sudden, lots of people discover their favorite band, and it doesn't feel so special anymore. It feels like, you know, like this isn't why you should like them. This particular song, Kaylee, that's not why you should like Marillion. You should like Marillion because of Script for a Jester's Tear or Fugazi. That's what you should be liking. And I despised that because that's just how I was.
Wrong. Yes.
Any band that I liked that got really popular, I would feel like, you know, they had lost something by becoming popular.
I've never felt like that. The only time I would ever feel like that is if I wouldn't be able to get a ticket to see them.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed seeing Marillion at the NEC and at Wembley Arena. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah. I hadn't. But that's partly because I don't like big venues. And it just bothered me to see these bands that I used to be able to get quite close to. Yeah, now I was half a mile away.
Yeah,
you know,
I get that.
You know,
Absolutely.
and they weren't for my money playing better music. They were playing music that I didn't like as much as the early music. So it was like a double-headed, you know, problem for me. But I think over time,
Next up,
yeah.
Jethro Tull. Now, Craig reminded me of a story. Actually, do you want to relay that
Yeah,
story?
'cause it was something. We're trying to remember where we actually heard it, whether it was a fish comment or whatever, where there started being a bit of politics going on, and Gary Moore had petitioned to be the main support act over Jethro Tull. So they acquiesced to his request, but he actually got paid less than Jethro Tull actually got paid for doing the gig. So that was
Tull were the special guests, weren't they?
yeah, they were the special guests, but they actually were on like you know for Gary Moore. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's an urban myth, we apologise, but if it's not, clever.
I think Ian Anderson mentioned the other day that Marillion had been their guest at Lustful Priory in '82 when he found Tiffany Survey the Fade, and you know, I've been playing with Queen as well, hadn't he? Of course, so he had been playing some big crowds. I'm not sure at all. I don't know. The tour with the band I knew least about. I'd never really heard much about them until that day, and I thought they were good, but I probably don't remember that much about them because I wasn't familiar with the music that much.
I was aware of them. I thought they were amazing on the day. I thought they were best of the support bands for me. They were playing stuff off Broadsword and the Beast, which is a great record. It really is. And they did a cover of an Ian Anderson song, Fly By Night, which is sort of more electronic. They had Peter John Vitesse in the band at that point. He's a bit of a keyboard wizard. So they were moving away a little bit from the Celtic folky stuff. But then they did sort of come back towards the end of the set. They played Thick as a Brick and Aqualung and Locomotive Breath. So, they brought some of the big guns out at the end, but I thought they were fantastic on the day.
And for Mark Kennedy, I must tell this absolutely stupid Jethro Tull story. When we were out with Mark and Pam one day for eating steak, having some food out, we were sitting in the car, having some chips and stuff like that. Threw a chip out, and a bird picked it up, which happened to be a seagull, had a chip in its mouth, lifted its leg up, and I just went, "Oh, look, a Jethro Gull," and Pam pissed us off. Laughing, absolutely in hysterics. So Jethro Gull's always been a running joke between me and Mr. Kennedy.
Can't follow that, can you, really? Greg, have you got any memories at all?
Yeah, I remember watching them. I wasn't a massive fan of Tull, to be honest, at the time. I remember seeing the documentary, the Ian Anderson documentary where there's footage of Milton Keynes.
Yeah.
It's probably the most footage you'll see of Milton Keynes, to be honest.
Yeah, there's about a 50-minute clip of
there's quite a lot of
them on YouTube,
It's like a rocket. It's about, I can't remember the name of the documentary now, but he's coming on doing his flute, and I remember seeing that and having all kind of wistful memories of the day when watching it. My biggest memory was I was with my mate and we were walking through, and there was this Jethro Tull fan absolutely smashed off his face, lying down unconscious. I just felt like saying, "Should we wake him up?" Because you just know he's going to wake up. You just missed the whole set,
Yeah. No, I thought they were great on the day, but we haven't really talked about the stage setup, have we? So these are the days before sort of big screens, but either side of the stage had a massive, a massive white print of the logo with the mark in the middle.
Yeah, there was two, wasn't there? There was the jester on one side, and then you got the child on the other side, and they were huge. They covered up the whole kind of speaker system. I love that, because I love that continuity with the artwork, and the stage itself. It's like it had the stripy top, didn't it? And the red and white stripes.
Yes, yeah.
And it's sort of all linked in with the artwork, and I kind of love that side of it.
Yeah, but those were the days before jumbo screens and
no, there was no screens, just lots of scaffolding in. But I remember coming over the sort of brim of the bowl and seeing the stage and seeing that artwork and thinking, "Oh yeah, I'm here."
Yeah. If you've watched I don't know if any of you watched sat through the video that's on YouTube of the whole Marillion set, but there's a lot of scaffolding in that video.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, I have. I don't think I've sat through all of it, but I have seen quite a bit of it. But it's quite uncomfortable. You feel a bit seasick after a while because it's shaky.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
Whoever had the camera was a very small person.
Also, the thing about those days, how big must that camera have been?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
with a big video camera, and he's just there filming the thing. The audio is quite good. One reason I'm glad that was recorded was because it preserved the audio. And the first time I knew of that was they sold the audio as a bootleg on cassette, a record set. And we might get onto the fact the BBC recorded all support bands, but not Marillion set for reasons I'm not sure why. But that audio does survive, and the audio on that video is a reasonable quality for a bootleg.
Yeah.
Okay, so R.C. Gary Moore then.
Well, again, I thought I didn't know the story, Craig, about the order of the set list, but it seemed to me that they put him on to play a few more Rocky songs before the main band. So he had a big set, and he did play a reasonably sort of rocky set. So it was before his blues sort of conversion to blues, and he was playing sort of that sort of 80s sort of rock stroke heavy metal, and very good at it. And of course, being Gary Moore, he's just a very, very good guitar player and a reasonable singer, and not much of a stage presence, but I think the material sort of, for me, what took it through, and I really enjoyed the set.
I enjoyed it. I mean, it's his sort of Virgin Records era, so it's Out in the Fields, it's Wild Frontier, Murder in the Skies, Empty Rooms. It's all that sort of stuff.
Mm.
He did do a cover of Freeze Wish Him Well as well, and I think he finished with a blues track, The Loner, or like a blues jam.
Yeah, no, it was instrumental for the albums. I think he went off, and I did the usual trick of then going down the side of the festival site, try to ease in front of the PAs to get to near the front of the stage for the main set. And he came on and did the encore just as I was right in front of the PA. So I know that I got a little bit of my synesthetic bank for that. But yeah, it
You're
was
a bit tall to be pulling that stunt, aren't you?
well, yeah, 16, you know. Well, the thing is, because I'll always be fairly tall, and you don't get anywhere sort of trying to badger in front of people because they don't thank you for it, understandably. Whereas if you go from the side, you can sort of, I'm just going to me mate, and then,
Oh, wouldn't have I been yard? Oh dear, the secrets are coming out now. Poor old Greg.
do that. Big sit back, get a leg. People get a few all the time, Greg. How did you manage to do it? You know, if you want them quite early on and then stayed there, good going.
Yeah, well, yeah. No, I didn't. I wasn't down at the front for the whole day. You know, I was mingling around, what have you. But yeah, I remember Gary Moore quite well because I'm a musician. I'm in a band with Guy, and I played guitar and a few other instruments. But I remember, I suppose it's like when you when you watch football on television, you watch a real football match, and you don't realize how good the players are until you actually see him in the flesh. And I think that was the case of Gary Moore. I just thought, wow, that guy is just incredible. You know, he was such a great guitar player.
Yeah.
And he just did it with so much ease. You know, he just did it, you know, without care in the world. And so those kind of players, you know, the Gary Moores, the Stevie Vais, and they can do it with their eyes shut. And I was just a bit marveled about him himself as a guitar player, really.
I saw him a few times. I saw him there, and I saw him at High Voltage I think it was a year before he died. Incredible player, as you say. You know, when he went into the blues stuff, really suited to that as well. But he got shot.
Marillion were there.
Sorry?
Was that the year Marillion were there?
Can't remember because I went 2 years running. I can't remember if that was the same year or not. I think it might have been.
Bonamassa was there the year Marillion were there.
Joe Bonamassa played with Black Country Communion. And then
He did, but he played his own set on the big stage.
Yeah.
And he then played on the prog stage at High Voltage.
Yeah.
Because in line with what Greg just said about watching a guitar player for whom it seems to be effortless, that was Joe Bonamassa. I didn't realize how incredible he was till I saw him live.
He's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, yeah. If you see him with the trio, there's just the three of them. It's just amazing. There's a gig on that World Tour of London that he did. I think he's at the borderline. It's absolutely stunning. But we're going massively off topic there, but never mind. But yeah,
There goes.
not really, is it? Still, I've asked Craig what he thinks of any of these sets, but could you hear him?
I tried, but no, I was too busy doing other things.
Anything else to say on Gary Moore before we get to the big finale? Nope, I'll take that as a no. Okay.
He'd go on to become a great blues guitar player, and I suspect he probably was already a great blues guitar player, but the blues was not big until Stevie Ray Vaughan and the Blues Brothers reintroduced it back into the mainstream. It still took him about another 7 years to realize that his metal career was going nowhere and that his true love was the blues, and good for him.
Yeah. Okay, so our heroes then came on to Garden Party. Obviously, opened with the Natural Garden Party. Pete wearing a massive top hat on a boiling day. What was he thinking?
Going to make himself seen from the back.
Yeah, probably, yeah. got to stand next to Derek, so he needs to look a bit taller. But he only wore it for the first song, I think. But he must have been absolutely boiling. I think watch the video again today that we've talked about, the bootleg. Fish says hello, Dad, and Pete says hello, son at the beginning, which I'd have never remembered on the day, but yeah. But yeah, how exciting was that to see him finally come on? It was still light when it came on, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've watched the bootleg. It was still like,
Yeah, like I said before, like I touched on previously, it was just I was pretty fed up just before the game on, to be honest. And I just thought, God, I'm sunburnt, I'm knackered, I'm covered in piss, and was it worth it? And then they kind of came on, and it, within a second, it was worth it. It was an amazing, probably one of my best gigs for me, to be honest.
Really? Yeah.
I loved every second of it, and I was in the zone. I was just down the front, and I was just like, with my favorite band, and it was just amazing.
Yeah. I seem to remember the atmosphere in the crowd was really friendly. Everybody sort of wanted them to do well and were looking out for each other. It wasn't sort of a nasty crowd by any means, was it?
No, apart from guy chucking his piss at me, it was fine, I think. Yeah.
I think he was just selecting band members for future years that way. That's how he does it. Reliable you for the future. Reliably informed, yeah.
Yeah, well, you said before there was sort of garden party, and we thought, well, that's a bit odd starting, and almost finish with it, but it worked really, really well. But what really hit me sort of about the occasion was when they started playing Freaks. It was a B-side, but they wouldn't have probably played it. I don't know if they played it on tour or not, but it hit me that shows that to play the second song, because the lyrics not about being a fan. We know it's about being sort of famous, but it was taken on as a fan's anthem, despite the lyric, and that everyone sing along to that song really meant something at the time. It had brought everyone together, and that's what I mean about it being a celebration of being a fan, and while it being a big gig for them as headliners, it was also a fans gig. It didn't feel like they were playing on someone else's tour, or even playing somebody arenas could go in and say, I would see him, and then you see on the Clutch and Straws tour, and half the people I think in there didn't know most of the songs. That certainly wasn't the case at Milton Keynes. Certainly was. Perhaps it was further back, but around the front, it was like it is now when you go to a Marillion concert. It was just a whole crowd of friends, or you didn't know yet, singing along. It was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
So watching the bootleg, I think there didn't seem to be that much of your typical Fish banter throughout. There was a few funnies and stuff in there.
Oh, I don't know. He does he tries an attempt at the world's biggest knock.
Oh, yeah, the world's worst knock joke as well, which just was absolutely painful. And then there was somebody who's complaining that they'd chucked a used condom at him.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's classic.
Yeah,
classic.
you're right. He keeps the chat down to a minimum, doesn't he? I think. But there's the bits that you can see. There's no animosity in the band at that point, is there? Nothing that you can see from the stage.
I don't know. I mean, I can't remember from on the day, but my memory of that video, there doesn't seem to be any animosity. But I don't know. When Fish says, up until Misplaced Childhood, it was like a pack mentality. It was like us against the world, and obviously by Clutching the Straws, that wasn't the case. So when would you say the band themselves as members were at their peak? Would it be that gig, or would it be the Birmingham gig?
For me, it's that gig, and with the gigs they did. Well, we saw one, but the farewell to '86, they did like fan club gigs in smaller venues at Christmas. These other songs from Clutching at Straws. I distinctly remember hearing Incommunicado for the first time at Liverpool World Court. I
was at Liverpool. Yeah, they played it. Well, all of them. They played it Incommunicado, Warm Wet Circles that time of the night.
Yeah, but for to hear a new song and to be so sort of Marillion but faster, it was. And they seem to be enjoying themselves. So I maybe was recording that album and the tour afterwards. I don't know. What do you think, John?
I
Read
think
Kelly's book, you'll find out.
the most, yeah, nice plug. I think the most exciting time for me in the Fish era was the farewell to 84 shows where we first did Misplaced. I was as excited as you about the farewell to 86 stuff, and Clutching is my favourite album from that era anyway. But they have recreated that, for me, that sort of excitement at different times. You know, in the Hogarth era, Brave is a massive highlight for me. Tour, the music, what was going on in my life. Guy's just there to be cantankerous tonight. He's just shaking his head. And then
Strokes for different folks, isn't it?
Parade of Sunlight. Again, you know, just
That was a great album.
1, 2, brilliant stuff.
One anyway.
And then Marbles. Brilliant. By that point, it had become. I'd got lots of friends in the fandom, so Marbles was more about us all chatting to each other and getting promos early and where are you going on the tour and all that sort of thing. Well, I didn't have that during the Fish era because I didn't have friends that were in that group, you know. And I also didn't drive at that point, so everywhere I went was on public transport, which was interesting. But I think it's probably, for this lineup, this is probably their best period of working together as a band, because we know it all started to fragment the next.
Yeah. I remember when they came on, because Fish had like several costume changes, didn't he?
Only one major one. He wore that sort of
the kimono, wasn't it?
Tracksuit top thing.
The black and white one.
Yeah.
I always thought he looked really cool in that top. And I always thought of, because didn't he wear that for a previous festival? I remember seeing a
when
photo.
He wore it for the Misplaced tour. It was kind of a
yeah
thing that he wore on the tour.
I remember just seeing him in that and then just thinking, oh, I know, he's the man, you know.
Yeah, because he wore that with sort of like joggers and like white boots as well, didn't he? So
Yeah.
Because those were the days where you see the high kicks over the mic stand and stuff, which doesn't happen anymore for obvious reasons.
And when did he put the kimono on? That must have been the Misplaced.
That was the start of Misplaced, and then I think during the end of Lavender, he goes off and gets changed into the tartan trousers and the white shirt.
Yeah.
Which is for the next.
These Forgotten Sons, did he? Didn't do a change with a flat jacket for Forgotten Sons of that thing there.
No, and Pete takes his hat off after the first song.
Yeah. So basically, they went from Open the Garden Party on to Freaks, then Assassin, Chelsea Monday, and then Script.
Yeah, it's a great stuff to this point.
Chelsea Monday is dedicated to the folks on the hill.
The back of the hill, isn't it? Yeah.
The lovers, yeah.
But yeah, they must have had some really good strong arms if they chucked used condoms from the back of the hill. I don't think there would have been a Mexican wave of used condoms coming across the crowd.
That's probably Guy again. He doesn't know. He can't remember.
So after Script, they went into all of Misplaced.
Yeah. Guy went to the toilet.
The first side of Misplaced is fantastic. It is fantastic. But I don't know if I knew that at the time. I think I did. I think that's not a recovered memory. I think I appreciated that. I just thought it really tailed off badly in the second half.
Yeah. So this run of gigs, though, I take it, was this the last time that they played Misplaced in its entirety?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah.
So it only had a shelf life of a year, really, as a piece to kind of play, even though it was, you know, they didn't milk it for 2 years or 3 years like some bands do with the big album.
They played most of it, didn't they, on the Clutch at Straws tour? I think, you know, they played the Signals and...
They played a shortened version of Pseudo Silk Kimono without the lyrics. So it really starts with Kaylee and Lavender and then goes into Heart of Lothian.
Right.
I'm not sure that they played... I'm not sure. I don't think they played the second half during the Clutching at Straws tour.
No, it doesn't make sense. So then after they did Misplaced, he did a bit of a little European political rant about the state of the world back in '86, which I think is a lot a lot different to the state of the world back in what is there in 25.
I think
So
it's
they'd
very
Forgotten
similar, yeah.
Sons, yeah, they'd Forgotten Sons, and that was that the last time they played that for a while after.
They hadn't played Forgotten Sons on the Misplaced tour. They'd left it out and then brought it back for these dates.
You ever played Forgotten Sons again?
What, since then?
Since then,
They
they
played it.
played it with Steve Hogarth.
Yeah, no, they played it. The Fish were in a few other concerts, not in the UK. There's some in Poland for some reason. If you look on the set list, it tells you, what gigs they played it at.
Yeah.
But I remember when Steve Rotherham played it in Manchester last year.
Yeah.
It was the first time I think I've seen him play it since that day.
So after Forgotten Sons, we're into the first encore, which was Incubus and Fugazi.
Yeah, you were home on Incubus.
What a double hit for an encore those two songs are.
I know.
Just brilliant. Just brilliant.
Well, Fugazi's the best song for me from those 4 albums. It's just fantastic song. Never played after the Touching at Straws tour by Marillion ever.
The best time I saw it was on the Fugazi tour at Sheffield City Hall with the
Yeah.
the
Thing with
top web, the spider's web and everything. Brilliant.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Brilliant, yeah.
They did play it at Butlins, didn't they, with Marty singing it?
That's what I was going to say. The only time they play it, you go with Martin singing it. Yeah, at Butlins. Yeah. And Martin singing at Port Zealand. Not Port Zealand.
Fish, yeah,
Yeah, Port Zealand.
Butlins.
Yeah, he played Fugazi at Butlins.
Butlins, yeah.
Played Incubus at Port Zealand.
Yeah.
In 2000.
But Fisher's band, we've got to say kudos, because when he did that in the early 90s to mid 90s, the version that Fisher's solo band did of Incubus was stunning with the twin guitars.
Well, yeah, the one I
mentioned before.
Yin and Yang, yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic, yeah.
That's really, really good. And then the final song of the evening, second encore, is the old showstopper of Market Square Heroes, which
It's not, is it? It's Do You
changed it a bit.
Do You Want to Dance? Into Market Square Heroes, into She Loves You, into The Twist, and then back into Market Square Heroes.
And it's a bit of a car crash.
Yeah.
It's very like Genesis did with Turn It On Again.
I was going to say, they were just copying that idea, weren't they, really?
Yeah.
You know.
That's what Queen used to do as well. Queen on that tour in '86, they did sort of Tutti Frutti and other sort of classics to keep these going at the end as well. So maybe they picked up from that more than Genesis.
Yeah, Queen did that and You're So Square and Hello Mary Lou.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Would anybody be interested in hearing that Incubus live version? Of course, they can hear it on the bootleg concerts that are on the Blu-ray, which accompanies the re-release of Internal Exile and Vigil in a Wilderness of Mirrors. But they need to buy it quickly because it's only available from Fish's shop, and Fish's shop is closing down on the 26th of March. And it will.
No, it's the 6th of March.
But it's the 6th.
of March. Yeah, it's
Even 3 weeks less than I was expecting.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can hear, because I think they played that Incubus version certainly at the New Year's Eve show, which is one of the ones that's on one of those discs. Well worth listening to.
yeah.
But if you're that slow, don't worry about it, because they are actually up on Spotify and on Amazon Music, so you can listen to them for free.
Wow. The devil speaks.
There we go. So anyway, final thoughts on Welcome to the Garden Party, Milton Keynes Bowl.
Does anyone know why the BBC didn't record Marillion set? Because
Well, we don't know that they didn't, but they've never broadcast it. So
And it's never been available as this.
that's to do with Mr. Arneson or EMI or
Yeah, but it's never been available even as a BBC transcript service
no.
disc.
Yeah, but they would make it a transcript if they'd broadcast it.
Yeah, no, I didn't. When I had it as a archived recording.
But everybody else's set was broadcast, wasn't it?
yeah, on the Friday Rock Show, you can still get it on YouTube, most of them. So yeah, I didn't know if that was a decision by the band or management, but Yeah, odd.
It's a shame that he didn't record any of those shows.
I think there is a possibility, and I'll say no more than this, that they were recording material themselves for a possible live album release, and they knew that a large part of that would be made up of Misplaced Childhood, and they thought they didn't want effectively a free version of it going out that they didn't have much control over, rather than wait for their fans to buy their own album. Because unlike today, people used to buy things, not use Spotify and Amazon Music to listen to them for free. And for a band like Marillion, having that intellectual property in that whole suite of songs was quite important. So I suspect that's why they didn't allow the BBC to record it. And when I say I suspect, I don't know for sure.
But it's funny that it wasn't recorded, because at the time in '86, T&T's recorded the Queen kind of magic shows, and
I was at the Newcastle kind of magic gig.
at St James's Park. So it's quite odd, considering that they were at the height of their popularity, that there was no proper recording of a Misplaced Childhood show, and especially considering this was their biggest show for themselves to date, that there was no plans to actually kind of record it and do a live video of it. But obviously a year later, they fixed that with doing live from Lorelei.
Was the crowd? What was the crowd? A lot of their biggest crowd then that the headline to Milton Keynes, or they played bigger crowds as the headliners.
I think it was
No.
their own biggest crowd. I don't know if
think it
they'd
was
actually played bigger before, but it was their own specific crowd that was the biggest.
Well, they had, of course, Craig, recorded both nights at Utrecht on that Misplaced Childhood tour, where they recorded the whole of Misplaced Childhood. And part of the reason for that was, as I say, the intention to release a live album. That might explain why, particularly as festivals, you don't have as much control over things as you might. Even when you're the headliner, there's a lot of things that can go wrong, and it's very expensive to record with a remote mobile in those sort of situations.
Yeah.
Well, they've recorded Hammersmith as well, haven't they? Because that's where tracks from this come from. And what's the mini album I can't think of now?
Brief Encounter.
Brief Encounter. Tracks from Brief Encounter from Hammersmith '85, I think. So
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you want to cover what you've got in your hand there, John?
well, this is the German Garden Party live single that was issued by EMI in 1986 to promote the
Electrola, yes. So apologies that we're not going to do its own charting the single episode on this, but we thought that there's not a great deal to say over the release, because it was a bit of an odd release, because it was German only, on a 12-inch and a 7-inch. But do you want to read the Wikipedia? Do you want me to go for it?
Well, just a minute. So it's Garden Parties from Reel to Reel, and Marillion Script for Jester Stay are both recorded at Hammersmith on the Misplaced tour. So yeah, do you want to go for it on the?
Yeah, I'll do the Wikipedia thing. So Welcome to the Garden Party is a 1986 single by Marillion. Well, I say a neo-prog band, Marillion, but we always have fun and games with the neo-prog band thing. It was released exclusively in West Germany to accompany a series of concerts the band played at festivals in that country as second bill to Queen, following their commercial breakthrough with the album Misplaced Childhood and hit singles Kaylee and Lavender the year before. The single was released on 7-inch and 12-inch vinyl. Neither version contained any new or previously unreleased material. The 7-inch and 12-inch versions contained completely different recordings from each other. The A-side Garden Party, originally the second single from the band's debut album Script for a Jester's Tear, had reached 16 on the UK singles chart in '83, but like all Marillion singles before Kaylee, had failed to chart in Germany. However, the single received little airplay and failed to enter the German top 100. So while a 7-inch single contained the edited studio version of Garden Party, also found on the original '83 7-inch single, we're getting there to where on the line I'm fucking was replaced with I'm miming to avoid airplay problems. The A-side of the 12-inch single featured a live recording made at De Montfort Hall, Leicester on the 5th of March '84, like John said, previously released on Reel to Reel. B-side of the 7-inch was an edited version of the 84 re-recording of Margaret Square Heroes, which is the one we talked about way back when. First released the B-side with Punch and Judy. The B-side of the 12-inch single featured 2 live tracks, Cayley and Script for Justice Tear. These versions recorded at London's Hammersmith Odeon in January 86 are the same as on Brief Encounter EP, which was released in the USA only a few months earlier. According to the title, print of the 12-inch version was Welcome to the Garden Party Live. There we go. And obviously
it's got the artwork from the summer shows on it, so it's worth it for that. It's a lovely sleeve.
But I remember seeing it in a lot of record shops because it was quite common around in the UK in like second-hand shops and stuff, because it was an import like Brief Encounter. So you know, any fans who particularly wanted it could grab it, no bother.
Yeah.
I think you still get it now. It's I don't know.
It's the 7-inch harder to find, I think.
I should add that, following on from what I previously said about recording, some German organization did record the Marillion show at Mannheim, because that we all miss First Childhood, because that's been available as a bootleg for many years.
Well, I think it went out on TV because the Queen set did as well. So
Right.
yeah.
But it's just trying to find who's got the rights and how much they would want to charge for it, and also what state the recording would actually be in. Whether that was like old videotape recordings that would have to go through a lot of AI kind of stuff to upscale it now to be
So, certainly on that bootleg, Fish comes on and sings Tutti Frutti with Freddie. So
Yeah.
it's worth getting hold of if you can find a copy.
So as a great bit of bonus, we have the legendary Andy Rotherham with us, who you guys may remember we had his one special episode a couple of months back, and during that time we briefly mentioned that when he was stationed across in Germany, he got to see the guys over there with Queen, and it was at Cologne, wasn't it?
That's right, Mungersdorfer Stadium or Stadion. It was a great time to be over there. I think I mentioned in the conversation we had last time, I was very fortunate to have been over there at that time, and you know, in Marillion's career, and that one was a very, very special gig. There were quite a few good bands on, quite a mix, and obviously ending with Queen.
It was Level 42 on with them on that leg of the tour or not? I can't remember.
Yeah, so it started off with a German band called Kraft, I think. And then Gary Moore, so that must have been about the Back in the Fields kind of era.
Yeah.
And then Level 42, who were quite big at the time. Then Marillion, and then Queen. Not bad for I think it came out at less than 20 quid.
Oh, jeez. I mean, could you imagine that kind of the costs for that kind of lineup now?
Yeah. I remember I was disappointed that I couldn't buy a Marillion shirt, because they only had obviously Queen had decided that or their management had decided you could only buy Queen merch, but I've got a Queen t-shirt with those bands on.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about the set lists and stuff then, and
Yeah.
this tour seemed to be the last time they actually played All the Misplaced Childhood
Yes.
in its entirety. Because looking at the set list for the gig that you went to, it's a cut down version of what they did at Milton Keynes, because obviously they want a support slot rather than the main headline. We're doing Garden Party, Freaks, Assassin, All of Misplaced Childhood, and then through to Forgotten Sons and Market Square Heroes.
Yeah, isn't it weird starting with Garden Party?
Well, you know, it was the Welcome to the Garden Party tour, so I
suppose that's. Yes, I can see the logic now.
there is a bit
from the light on that.
a little bit of logic there.
Yeah, I remember Brian May came on with them as well. I was pretty sure that he came on at the end of Forgotten Sons, but the way I spoke to Steve Rotherham about it, and the way he remembers it, I think what happened was, he was sort of checking his back line during Forgotten Sons, and he had the whole bloody back line on. So I just remember like a clang kind of thing as this wall of AC30s, Vox AC30s, kicked into life, and he must have played Market Square Heroes with them, which was the final song. But yeah, I was right down at the front, which is unusual for me. I'm not that kind of gig watcher really. Although I was in my punk days, I used to love being at the front, but not so much nowadays. And I was right down, and I was just in front of where Pete Travis was, which was stage right at that time. Fish was very animated, but then again, you know, he was not competing, but he had to at least bear some comparison to what was following him with Freddie.
Yeah, I would imagine, they've, to be fair, Marillion have never been, throughout their career, they've never really been much of a support act. They've always been predominantly a headliner. So when you're going to be a support act for a band with such charisma as Queen, I mean, especially, you're going on before Freddie Mercury, who's going to blow anybody out with the water, no matter what. Yeah, and it's some. I mean, they were really lucky to get onto that lineup as it is in any case.
Yeah, I think it was purely because they were on the MI.
Yeah.
But to do the German, they did the 2 German dates, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was Mannheim, wasn't it? The day before.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. It was quite something. I remember being surprised at the time that they played the whole of Misplaced Childhood. Again, being in the support slot for somebody else's gig, and effectively a festival. That was a bold decision, and but then again, Marillion have always made bold decisions, haven't they?
Oh, definitely, definitely. I mean, I remember even Crop Ready, a good few years ago when they played Gaza right in the middle of a festival set at a folk festival. That was a brave move, definitely a brave move. But I think something like Misplaced, though, I think it probably worked better with a Queen crowd than possibly some of the earlier stuff.
Yeah, and you've got to remember how big that album was, and especially in Germany and the Netherlands. It was so big. They were everywhere. It was the biggest album really at that time, apart from, I would say, and being even more of a nerd than I am, you'll probably tell me if I'm right. With the year, it would be Brothers in Arms, I suppose.
85, yeah, same year. Well,
Yeah.
85 is Brothers in Arms, yeah, same year, yeah.
So 85 was when Misplaced was released, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So it was released on the same year as Brothers in Arms. And obviously this date that we're talking about was 86.
Yeah.
And it was that, like, the never ending tour, wasn't it? Listening to the guy talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, the Misplaced tour went all the way through. I mean, it was right through till, like, Farewell to 86, wasn't it? And
Yeah,
and that's when they started playing, as we even mentioned in the pod earlier on. Started playing a couple of songs from Clutching in the Farewell to 86 trio. So
right. So
it's before my time, though. Before my time.
So the next time I saw them after this one, after the Queen gig, was Lorelei, and that was all July, August, beginning.
Yeah, it was July.
July, 87. Yeah.
So do you remember how in the mists of time how the band actually went down with the Queen audience?
Yeah, it went really well from where I was. It was fabulous. The crowd was moving. The stadium was packed. And Yeah, it went down really well, especially when Brian May came on towards the end, and that must have been a real treat. And I think the guys themselves thought that was a treat. And Fish also came on with Queen. And
Yeah, because did he do Tutti Frutti with them?
Tutti Frutti, yeah. And I remember him again not being in competition with Freddie, but trying to be a front man along Mercury. And it's hard to describe, Did you see Freddie Mercury?
I've unlike John, I never got to see Queen live.
Right. So there was something that was wholly unique and really special about Freddie Mercury. He could have the crowd in the palm of his hand, so to speak, immediately. So just by walking on stage, he had such a massive charisma, and obviously, a massive talent as well. So I wouldn't have liked to have had to stand there and see.
But I mean, as flamboyant and everything that he was, he seemed to be well respected in the industry in any case for just being a fairly generally good guy.
I think that he was actually the antithesis of his stage persona in real life.
Yeah.
I think he was a very shy chap, but I think also as well that was the period when they were still partying hard.
Yeah.
So the old cocaine trays on the heads of dwarves and old.
Oh yeah, with the parties and stuff, absolutely legendary.
Whether that is true or that is legend, I don't know. But I know Marillion were at that party, and so so that they were Marillion themselves were enjoying themselves at that time as well, and so I think they got on really well with Queen.
Yeah, and I know there's been I know Fish was still in contact a bit through the SAS band with Spike Edney, and he was still occasionally in contact with Brian and Roger, but I don't think I think it was very sporadic.
Yeah, I don't think they've had any contact since as such, which is a shame because I think Brian would obviously Brian and Steve Rotherham share a big interesting space, and I'm sure they'd have a really interesting chat. Guitars,
As in the nerd out like you wouldn't believe.
yes, and I'm sure that they'd come up with an idea for an album, as if Steve is making enough albums already.
That's it. He's got how many fingers and how many pies at the minute, but
Yeah,
it's just
yeah. I'm not saying because I don't know if everybody knows them all. My mouth is shut on that one.
That's it. Well, thanks for coming on, Andy. It's great to speak to you again, mate.
Yeah, you too. But in summary, it was a fantastic gig, and they were the only band probably at that time, an era, to be able to come on just before Queen.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody else could have done it, and it was fabulous, and it was a great time to be alive, and it was a great time to be living in Germany and witnessing it.
Cheers. Brilliant, mate. Thank you very much. I'll
All
speak
right.
to you soon.
Take care, mate. Bye.
Okay, well, back in January, we asked you guys out there in Listerland whether you were at the Milton Keynes gig, and we did get lots of comments. So thank you again. Craig and I are just going to read a few out. So Mark Owens, hi Mark. Mark says he was there. We went up on the coach trip run by Rock Scene Records in Newport, and I remember it was a baking hot day, and I brought a sleeveless assassin shirt with the mercenary and the death on the front and the spade on the back. I think the spade had a face on it, at least half of it. I have a few really bad photos somewhere taken on an old Kodak Instamatic 77X. I'll try and dig them out. Jethro Tull were brilliant, and it was the first time I'd seen them live. I fell in love with them, and I remember Gary Moore having a cucumber down the leg of his trousers. Well, that's what it looked like to us. I think there's some footage of the gig on YouTube. There is indeed, Mark. If I remember any more, I'll let you know. Hey, what I've remembered is nothing short of a minor miracle, and you know what I'm like. We do know what you like, mate. We love you for it.
You can't remember what he has for breakfast most of the times.
Really good for Mark. Thanks, mate.
Lee Fuller. My first big day out. I wasn't 16 until a couple of weeks later. Great gig despite the heat, as everyone else has said, but my best memory of going home on to Burnley on the National Express afterwards. Milton Keynes was a stop on the London to Burnley route, so I got the bus and it was pretty full, but the mood was like a morgue, full of silent blokes with immaculate clothes and pristine hair, sat with wailing girls with pristine hair and running mascara, all in white t-shirts with big black letters saying things like "Choose Life," "The Final," or simply "Wham." For yes, there was also a gig at Wembley that day where George Michael and the other bloke called it a day we have mentioned. Reckon I had a much better day.
Paul Johnson, I was there, my first ever Marillion gig, and I hardly knew any of their songs at the time. A mate at sixth form persuaded me to go. I remember being blown away by Fish singing Script. It was a red hot day and we got drunk on the stubby bottles of beer. The train home was a nightmare. We got stuck at Birmingham and spent the night sleeping on the platform in the platform waiting room. When I eventually got home, I was that tired I slept all afternoon on the Sunday. Pretty sure it was World Cup final and I fell asleep watching it. My introduction to Marillion, I'd only ever heard Kaylee at that point. What a first gig that must have been.
Wasn't it? Yeah. Malik Ingle, he says, it was a hot day. The Bowl was one of my favourite outdoor venues, having seen Queen and the Crow there. So many fabulous support artists too. I have to be honest, I didn't enjoy it as much as the Hammy Odeon gigs because the light show and sound wasn't as good. I went to 11 during that tour, including Brixton, Birmingham, Odeon, I believe as well. But the atmosphere was excellent and left the show feeling elated. But he's also additionally mentioned that when he lived in Brixton at the time and Wham did their warm-up practice there in the afternoon, it was really hot, so the fire doors were open. Walked in and watched the entire set for free. I will say George was a mover for sure. Not as good as Milton Keynes Marillion show, of course, but also saw the Murillos at Brixton Academy on that tour too. All's good.
Brilliant. Ian Humphrey says, I had a ticket and was very excited as it was to be my second Marillion gig, having been at Birmingham NEC on the 19th of December. Unfortunately, I broke my femur during a charity run for Sport Aid for Africa and was hospitalised for many weeks. Finally got to see them 4 times on the clutching tour. Oh, what a shame you missed that, Ian. It was a fantastic day.
Graham Houston says, it was hot. Damned hot. And Simon Bonsfield's reply, definitely was. Can't remember a bloody thing about it though, but here's me ticket.
And our final comment we'll leave to Andrew Barnsley Wood, who simply says, I was too young.
And so was I.
I wasn't. I'm an old git. Anyhow, we've discussed Welcome to the Garden Party, Marillion at Milton Keynes in June 86 to death. So thank you for listening if you got this far. But it just remains to say thank you very much to Guy Vickers.
Thank you.
And thank you, Stephen Wicks.
Thank you.
And thank you, Greg Forster.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on, guys. Thank you, Craig, Dr. Craig, for being here.
MD.
All that be said is, it's good night from me.
And it's adieu from him.
Take care.
Bye. And stay alive.
Thanks for listening to Planet Marzipan Podcast. Please like and subscribe from whichever platform you get your podcasts from. You can contact us at planetmarzipanpodcast@gmail.com and check out marillion.com, fishmusic.scot for all